Yo, what's poppin'? It's Tommathan, and to continue my season review series, which I'll pick up the pace on a bit, we have the LA Gladiators, who had an absolutely monstrous first half of the season, winning the kickoff clash and midseason madness tournament, but their back half left a little something to be desired. But nonetheless, they were good for third in NA in the regular season, with an 18-6 record, a plus 35 map differential, and 26 points once you consider their two tournament wins. Now, they did finish 7th, 8th in the playoffs, so obviously that's not the end you want with this absolutely monstrous superstar team, super spending team. You want it better than that. But overall, you win your two tournaments, you probably think that's pretty good for a roster. And they ended up having 3 role stars, 2 MVP candidates, a Rookie of the Year candidate. It's not like it was an unsuccessful year. It just, all the success was in one spot kind of thing. But this roster of Kevster, Happy, DPS line at the end, and they had Potifon Ons at the beginning with no Happy, obviously. He was on the Washington Justice. You get your tank line of Reiner Space and your back line of Funny Astro Shoe and Skewed, and it's just big names across the board. And one of the best things about the Gladiators is that they were a team that built on their previous rosters the past few years, which I think is really big for keeping, your fan base involved. It's good at, moving past your weaknesses. You don't have to figure out what's wrong with the roster. Like a team like Toronto Defiant, right? They get a new roster every single season. Each new roster has different strengths and weaknesses. For the Gladiators, you look, the roster was maybe a little weak here, so we will pick up, I don't know, Potifon, so we get more flexibility or something like that. And it just lets you expand and like overcome weaknesses rather than, well, what the fuck's our weakness now kind of thing. So I like that a lot. Now, that being said, they do only have 2 players under contract for next season, being Kevster and Funny Astro, because those are 2 pretty irreplaceable players. I guess there's a lot of I guess Shu's the only other real irreplaceable player here on this roster, I would say. Maybe you can include Skewed, but nonetheless, which I said twice in this video, which is a little weird, I like building on previous rosters. I think it's cool. But talking about the individual players and how they had their seasons, Kevster's the big man, right? Obviously, he's the big guy. He's the only player in the entire league who had comparable stats to Proper, basically. Even though he does have, I would say, a better team around him to do that, it's still extremely impressive. And honestly, the DPS MVP competition was just between Proper and Kevster. Yeah, people say Lip and Profit, but what Kevster and Proper were doing were like insane feats. And Kevster this season, he really stepped up from just being, that super flexible guy who can do whatever to like, you put him on what he carries the hardest on, right? It was like he was the centerpiece. And that resulted in a lot of Tracer Genji. Yes, he was still flexible. He had some like Junkrat moments, Echo, Soldier, Sojourn, Reaper at the end, all that stuff. But Tracer Genji was the bread and butter, and that's what he was finding the most success on. Then that's why at the beginning of this stage, at the beginning of this season, you had Potifon to be that perfect complement to him. Potifon was letting him do that. He would be able to play whatever it was that Kevster wasn't on and fill in the gaps around him for any kind of composition. You get play the Rhine stuff, he's on the Mei. You could play the Soldier at the beginning, the Sojourn in the middle, all that stuff. You get some Genji Tracer stuff too, so if you want to go full dive, you could. Potifon was perfect for Kevster. It truly let him play whatever he was best at. And then once Potifon left, and there was no one to really fill in that Sojourn gap, because Ons, who was basically there as your Widowmaker specialist, he didn't want to play the Sojourn. He just, I don't know if he refused to, if he was really bad at it. Don't know what it was. Probably pretty bad at it, I would presume, because why would you just not play it? I don't know. It kind of left them a little bit out of water because they couldn't do that suddenly. Kevster had to compensate. Now, in the meta, it was just Genji, so he didn't really have to compensate, but he would have if they continued to move forward with just Ons. Which is why you see them bringing Happy from the, at the time, exploding Washington Justice. And I'm not saying that, Ons wasn't good this season. He definitely wasn't like, 2020 Ons or anything like that. He had some good moments in the grand finals of the midseason madness on that Widowmaker pick against Kilo on Dorado, which I remember him best for. But throughout the season, he was kind of a, he'd come in for the Widowmaker and you'd go, well, is he actually winning these duels? Is he actually doing this stuff that he needs to? And like your jibs and things like that. He was all right. He was getting the job done. But he wasn't, coming in. Oh my God, Ons is in, guys. Watch your head. It was like Ons is in. End of sentence kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I don't know. And then you go to Happy comes in. I think Happy was extremely consistent. I think he was their best Sojourn. You can say Podifon and stuff like that. Now I'll get to this whenever I talk about the Summer Showdown a little bit, but I think Happy was perfectly fine. I think he's not quite elite level. Like he's not like a Lip. He's not like a Merit. It felt like to me this season, but I think he's definitely just a step below that, and that's probably where Podifon was, or a little higher, to be honest. And he was their best. I think he was their best player maybe in this playoff run. It's hard to say because they didn't go very far and things like that. But I don't know. I thought the one thing I will give Happy that I will knock him on a little bit is I expected his play to elevate whenever he got on a better team, and it didn't really. It felt like it stayed the same, which is still very good. But I wanted to see him be elite. I wanted to see him become Merit, but it didn't happen. Which I don't know. Maybe the Glads were hoping for that a little bit too. Now, going to talk about the tank line a bit. You're going to start off with Space. Space basically just came in to play Sigma on Circuit Royale, Junker Town, things like that. There wasn't a lot outside that. He did come in to play Junker Queen in the final week of the Summer Showdown because, Reiner wasn't the most proficient on it. But someone's playing Lowrider outside. But yeah, Space, his Joker Queen was really good, and I really would have liked to see what the Glads looked like if they did get into the tournament, if they did play him on it earlier, because I think that could have changed the view of Space for a lot of people if he had that one really good stage where he looked really good on the Junker Queen, because now people are like, oh, Space is kind of washed. I don't know if he's going to be any good next season. I don't know if he's coming back. He might retire, all this stuff. I think it would have been really interesting to see him actually get the playtime and prove himself more. Because the Sigma wasn't bad. I do think it wasn't crazy. Like, I remember, I don't know, this is just like my remembering, which don't trust it, I guess. But to me, I remember a lot of the time where they would actually lose Circuit Royale maps where Space was in. I feel like Space's win rate is not fantastic on the Sigma this season. It's probably 50. But when you're a team like the Gladiators, you kind of need a bit better than that. Now, that could also be completely wrong. Who knows? Not me. And then you have Reiner, who is their main guy, right? And before the halfway point of the season, it was like, oh, Hyperflex Reiner, he can play it all, he can do whatever. Realistically, he just played the Winston, the Doomfist, the Reinhardt. Yeah, he played a little bit of Zarya, he played a little bit of Diva, a little bit of things like that towards the end in the Countdown Cup because Space was sick, so he couldn't play. But for the most part, Reiner played his main tanks and Doomfist. He didn't really excel on the Junker Queen either, right? He was maybe he was definitely a noticeable problem for the team on the Junker Queen. Now I think they had more issues than that whenever he did play, but yeah, it wasn't mechanically gifted. I do think Reiner's still very good. I think he definitely deserves his Role Star, but he wasn't like a lock. I think he'll be good next season, wherever he goes, and all that stuff. But it kind of ended on a kind of note, because the playoffs, Winston wasn't particularly insane either. So I don't know. Reiner definitely was stronger at the beginning than the end. That's all I'm saying. And his flexibility is still questionable outside of the main tanks. Now getting to the support line, you have MVP candidate Shu, the only support player that was considered for MVP. Bro was kind of insane on it. He defined the entire playstyle for this team in the kickoff clash midseason madness with his incredibly aggressive Ana plays. And he wasn't dying, sure. His deaths per 10 is 5.8 at the bottom right there. That's a pretty high number, right? But the value he gets off of his cooldowns, yeah, he'll die, but he'll hit a 5-man nade and his team will capitalize on it. That was the kind of stuff that Shu was able to do. And that's why, at least at the halfway point, Shu was like one of my MVP candidates in the entire league. He was my MVP candidate for the team at the halfway point because his playstyle just enabled them so much. And no one was really doing it like him. Now, he does have to sit out the Summer Showdown. And people question his Kiriko gameplay. But honestly, I don't know. He did end up having like the highest hero damage, even higher than Teru per 10. He had really good elims, final blows, all that stuff. He didn't even die a lot. So I don't know. Now, of course, that's not all Kiriko's about. His healing was a bit below average and things like that. And it becomes a lot more of like, oh, the Suzu usage, your ult timing, all that stuff, because it wasn't the meta that was raw statistic, raw mechanics. But I'd have to take a closer look before I feel confident in saying that choose Kiriko wasn't insane. I definitely, while watching it at the time, I was like, I expected more, but I don't know what I was really expecting with the Kiriko. So if anyone has like done a deep dive on Choose Kiriko, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it and if it's actually any good or not, because I honestly don't know. I know statistically it looks good, but I couldn't tell you. And then I'll talk about Funny Astro and Skewed real quick. Funny Astro is just your Lucio player. In the first half, he was insane, right? He was insane. He was actually having noticeable map impact, huge diffs. You go, oh my god, that map was kind of a Lucio diff because Funny Astro just gave them a different kind of edge compared to anyone else. And then in the Summer Showdown, people like to point out, he wasn't as strong. But honestly, I don't know if it was a individual issue or if it was a team issue. If you actually look at the stats, the deaths were fine. The deaths were only like zero.1 or zero.2 worse than Chio, who is widely known as the best Lucio right now. To me, I guess to me, I don't know if widely known is fair, but to me, he was the best Lucio of the season. He had good stats. Now you could say, oh, he got a little out of position or whatever. I think it was purely just a Gladiators macro misunderstanding. Again, I don't think he particularly played badly in the Summer Showdown or anything like that. And I kind of gave him and all the Glads a bad rap because I don't think they individually played poor. I don't know. It's just so weird. Just such a weird team. They shouldn't have been bad in that meta, man. And then you have Skewed, who played a bit of Zen, played some Brig, mostly Brig Zen. His Zenyatta, I wasn't overly impressed by. It was like okay, it was suitable, but his Brig is where he really shines, and his Brig was really good, right? I think it was good in the Summer Showdown. It just the team wasn't, which doesn't make sense because the team was less than the sum of the parts. Basically, is what happened. Um, it's hard to say. Anyway, looking at the staff real quick, you have Face as your head coach, Hunter Smash assistant coach, and then you got your managers, which I don't know. I don't have much to say about managers. Um, Face got a lot of credit at the beginning and a lot of not credit at the end because he didn't. The team struggled in the macro heavy metas, right? Which looks bad on your coaching staff. It does. Whereas teams like Dallas, who excelled in the Summer Showdown and the playoffs, it makes Rush look really good. That's kind of my thoughts on it. I don't know how good they are. I don't know any of that. Hunter's found success wherever he's gone. Face is there. Smash has a lot of high praise. Whatever. So quickly to wrap this up, I'll go through each of their little stages. So you got the kickoff clash. They were the king of flexibility, right? They were able to counter comp any team that had their way. For Dallas, they're like, fuck it, we'll play Ryan against the Ryan teams. We're going to play the Doomfist. They had the Winston going on, the Zarya 2, all that stuff. They just knew how to counter comp extremely well. No one else was doing it like that. And it worked out because the heroes that they needed to counter comp, Reiner was good at all of them. Then you go to the midseason madness where you get some double flex support stuff, you get the Winston stuff, you get some wrecking ball things, all that stuff. Again, Reiner's very good at all those characters. Again, you had Tommathan, you had Kevster, you were able to outmaneuver the enemy team, basically. They were just a one step ahead in terms of compositions. And they ended up winning after losing to the Shock in the winner's bracket. They do make their grand finals run back. Then you get to the Summer Showdown, you get the Jotes meta. Now, this is where Tommathan leaves and Ons isn't willing to pick up the Sojourn. Now, my ordering is a bit weird, but their first two matches of the stage were the Dallas and Houston match where they both lost in map 5. To me, these were two extremely close games. If you have Tommathan on your Sojourn and you're not running Shu, you're not running Ons on Ashe, which is a good pick, as Toronto showed, but the Glads weren't willing to commit to it or they didn't like it or something. If you have Tommathan there, I'm not saying they do win either of those matches, but I'm saying there's a better chance. And if they win even one of those, if just one more map goes their way as a result of having Potty, they make the Summer Showdown. And at the very end, people were saying that they would have been the winners, right? They looked insane in the eye test. Now, the eye test also had them beating Paris Atlanta in the last week, which isn't, good. Atlanta struggled. Paris is awful. But if the leaks are true, of what teams were saying, what players were saying is true, it could have been a 3 tournament win for the Glads potentially. Um, and Tommathan just kind of retiring on them could have hurt them a bit. Well, obviously it hurt them a bit because the team was never the same after losing Potty. Whether it be the energy he brought, the compliments he brought to Kevster, anything like that. I don't know. Just something to think about. I feel like it could have gone differently if they got happy earlier. If Tommathan didn't retire, if Ons was willing to maybe play the Sojourner, was better at the Sojourner, whatever it was, it could have changed. Now, I don't think it would have changed the playoffs. Yeah, they went 6-0 in the Countdown Cup qualifiers, but they played pretty bad teams. Looking at their, they played the top 3 teams that aren't them in their summer showdown, right? So obviously their next qualifiers will be not as stacked. And they did 6-0, but their best team they beat was London. So it's hard to say how good they actually were in it. I didn't think they were spectacular, but they were good enough. And in their playoffs, they just didn't really have it all together. I don't know. The Winston was a little lacking, and Kevster was put on either Reaper or Sojourn, and he wasn't particularly able to carry on either of those heroes. So the whole thing about put Kevster on the character he can carry on wasn't a thing they could do in the playoffs, and they looked not great for it. They were flip-flopping him between Reaper, Sojourn, all that stuff, and it just looked like they didn't have a full grasp on what they wanted to do in terms of anything. And it hurt them a lot. Yeah, just unfortunate. But yeah, that's going to be it. Let me know your thoughts on the LA Gladiators. Who are they picking up? What's going on next? They only have Kevster, Funny Astro. Let me know your thoughts on Summer Showdown stuff. Tommathan retiring. There's lots of things to talk about with the Gladiators. But anyway, like this video if you like it. Subscribe if you really liked it. All that stuff. Useless.